Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus here with a review of the Popynica machine Tornader from Kamen Rider Agito. This toy was released almost 10 years ago. That's still hitting me now. Came out in 2001. 9 years of toy engineering. And guess what? Soon you'll have a chance to own this again, because, by all accounts, it appears that a slightly redecoed version of this, with improved paint apps, a new Tamashii Stage Act 2 stand, and grippy hands for Agito, is going to be released as the Tamashii Web exclusive Figuarts Machine Tornader. But I've got to say, the original is pretty solid. The tires are a little bit hard rubbery, although I'm not sure if they're a full-on rubber. They feel more like the rubber of the Popynica ride shooter from Ryuki. And it's just a really solid bike with a big chunk of die-cast in the middle somewhere. It also has a kickstand, but the kickstand's a little bit unwieldy. It's across the entire length of the bottom of the bike. Without it, it rolls pretty well until it falls over, so usually I just keep it down there for display purposes. There's also a wheel. I wonder what that's for. Back when this came out, it was sized in order to allow a Kamen Rider Agito figure to ride it. Specifically, the Sochok Henshin Kamen Rider Agito. And does he do it alright? Yeah, he does it alright. He's a little bit rickety to get on here, mostly because of his limited leg posability. Well, I say limited now, but at the time, this was literally the Agito toy at any kind of affordable scale, as far as I recall. And thanks to his Sochok Henshin hands, he can grip the handlebars pretty handily. He can look forward if you really want to. You can position his legs up against this thing. And you know what? It looks like he's riding a motorcycle. I dig it. Here we go, count zero, etc., etc. However, this thing is being reissued. At least that's what we think. So how well does it work with a Figuarts Agito? Well, let's try to get him on here. Even though I lack the grippy hands, using his inexplicable rage fists, and by fists I mean open hands, let's just see if we can get him, well, approximately gripping the handlebars. This is kind of like if he's trying to ride his bike and having a sudden case of the spastics in his knuckles or something like that. I think he looks alright. He's evidently bigger than the Sochok Henshin, but I think that actually works in his favor, because the Sochok Henshin always looked a little bit small on this motorbike, and if there's one thing that I've never really gotten clear, I'm going to admit now, it's what the proportion is between a man and a motorbike, and a man that's riding a motorbike. It's always a very strange thing, because if the motorbike is huge, it can look pretty cool, but if the guy is a little bit bigger, it can make it look a lot more like a crotch rocket. And I think this works out pretty well. If he has grippy hands, I'm sure he'll be able to hold on better, and thanks to his increased posability, you can get him looking a little bit more like he's actually riding it, as opposed to kind of draping himself over it and hanging on for dear life. This is not the only thing, though, that the Machine Tornader can do. It has an alternate mode. And this version of the Popynica Machine Tornader actually came with a small vinyl or rubber shining Agito meant to ride its alternate mode. Sadly, the box and that Agito, who I left in the box, is buried in the pile, and was not handy for this video recording. The transformation of the bike is exceedingly simple and terribly satisfying. First, you extend this out, fold it forward, and check this. Oomph! I love it! You can also rotate this wheel, which splays the exhausts, and they even added a handy little extra tiny wheel. That's what this original tiny wheel was for. And when all's said and done, you've got the Machine Tornader in its slider mode. Now, this doesn't look all that amazing on its own, but if you know the backstory to this thing, you'd know that this is basically the power of God at work. The Overlord. Oh, anyway. Now, while the Sochok Henshin Agito can kind of ride on this thing, you really do need to hold him in place, in part because of his meaty Chogokin-ness. Getting a solid stance on this can be a little bit tricky, and you definitely can't wave it around. There's no foot pegs or anything for this little guy. So, while he does work out on there, it's a little bit awkward. As for Figuarts, There are also no foot pegs, and thus it is actually similarly awkward, although it helps that a Figuarts Toys diecast is a little bit more foot-based and not so much chest-based, which means that Agito can fall off when you knock it over, but when you leave him all alone here and try to get him in a nice pose, he's a little bit less topple-heavy. Still not perfect, but the slider mode was never really designed to lock a rider in place. The thing practically bucks him off sometimes to deliver some rider kicks. I do like how it looks, though, and it really gets across that vibe, even though this thing was not in slider mode all the time. Agito, seriously. I bet you he wouldn't be doing this if he had calm open hands, but no, Tamashii Web exclusive. So, for now, he's all angry, and he's like, I'm in slider mode! Ah! So, it's unfortunate, but really, I do think the slider mode transformation is great. It's simple, it's effective, it's solid, it's clunky, and it gets across what it's supposed to get across. Unfortunately, I can't really tell you how much a Popynica Machine Tornader costs nowadays, because I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that once the Figuarts version comes out with all of its apparently small improvements, this version will become cheaper, at least on auctions.yahoo Japan. And let me tell you, there's someone out there who can help you with that. They go by the name of Yokata Shipping. They also go by the name of many other middleman services, but I like Yokata quite a bit. So come the end of January or mid-February or so, I'd say go cruising through those auction sites if you can, and have a look-see. Maybe this thing will come down in price. Overall, I think that it accomplishes something that Figuarts is sorely lacking, and it accomplishes something that's a little bit rare in more modern rider toy lines, that being providing your rider figure with his rider machine. It looks great with Agito. Really, it looks great with either Agito, but since the Figuarts Agito is so delightfully perfect in comparison to the Sochok Henshin version, at least proportions-wise, only 2 hands? It complements him excellently, and I'd highly recommend it if you've already got Agito himself. That's been Internet Personality Vangelus covering a little slice of Agito. Tune in tomorrow for something new, rider, and Figuart.